everyone, I'm Joe, and I'm here today to talk about one of my all-time favorite films, Silver Linings Playbook, starring Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Robert De Niro, Jackie Weaver, also written and directed by David O. Russell, who's done films like The Fighter, American Hustle, and there's probably some others that I'm forgetting. It tells a story of a man named Pat, played by Bradley Cooper, who's just been released from a mental institution after having a breakdown of sorts, comes back home to his parents, Robert De Niro and Jackie Weaver, and he's desperately trying to reconnect with his wife and getting his life back on track. And along the way, he runs into this woman named Tiffany, played by Jennifer Lawrence, who's also a bit of a head case herself, and they both bond over the fact that they're just two nut jobs, basically. Two nut jobs that are a perfect match for each other. Now, in case anybody hasn't seen this movie by now, I'm gonna go into some spoilers. Not gonna talk about everything, but I'm gonna go into some details, so ye be warned. I remember at the time when this movie was about to be released, I saw the trailers for it, seeing Bradley Cooper in what seemed like a very different and serious role for him, and seeing Robert De Niro playing his father, and seeing Jennifer Lawrence in the trailers and thinking, oh yeah, that actress who got nominated for Oscar for Winter's Bone. Even though the trailers kind of make it look like it's gonna be some kind of a conventional rom-com of some kind, when you watch the movie, it's very different from a lot of the other dramedies out there. And even though this does play out in a somewhat of a conventional way that other films like this have done, it has a really good sense of grounded realism to it. David O. Russell portrays it in a very lighthearted manner, but he also keeps it very realistic and serious. There's also a sense of groundedness to it. It feels like you're actually watching real people. It doesn't feel like you're watching a movie. So the plot, as I said, Bradley Cooper's character Pat is trying to get his life back on track after having a mental breakdown. He caught his wife in the act cheating on him, and Pat has a severe case of bipolar disorder and delusions. And whoa, he has got it. Whoa. So catching his wife in the act with another man, obviously that would push him to the breaking point. Now that he's back with his parents, he's desperately trying to get back with his wife, even though everyone makes it pretty clear with his legal situation and restraining order, she does not want him back, period. But as you'd expect, he's in denial. And it's safe to say that his parents are a little on edge. They're scared because they don't know what this guy's gonna do. He can go to bed with one mindset and then wake up in the middle of the night completely out of his mind, losing his crap over something that happens in a book. And it gets to a point where after his first encounter with Tiffany, a fight breaks out between him and his father, and the police have to come in and calm down the whole situation. Now that scene is really, really hard to watch. That's the most gut-wrenching scene emotionally for me. This movie goes from one tone to another. You feel every single emotion that it puts on screen. You laugh, you feel for the characters, you cry, you feel uncomfortable. It might feel a little abrupt for some people, but for some reason, it doesn't feel that way for me. It feels like a perfect transition. We all experience different emotions throughout the day. And even though I don't like watching that scene where he's crying for his wedding video because of the fight that breaks out, I'm glad that David O. Russell didn't shy away from showing that. When he first sees Jennifer Lawrence on his run, and he's saying like, I'm married, so am I. This is basically how I react every time I watch this scene.
Hospital, Baltimore.
I'm not the big slut.
Oh my God. Not only that, but there's certain moments when characters have interactions with each other that Pat is just so abrupt and very matter-of-fact with what he says. He does not give a crap what he says to people. And she's obviously no different from him.
You have poor social skills. You have a problem.
I have a problem? You say more inappropriate things than appropriate things.
Considering how these two nut jobs have been through heavy situations, there's a common bond that they share, that they feel misunderstood by everybody in their life. They feel like they belong more than they ever have in anywhere else in life. In Tiffany's situation, she's a widow, her husband was run over by a truck on the highway, and due to her depression, she had sexual relations with everybody in her office. Men and women.
You sent her back?
Mm-hmm.
She told you what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And now she is living back home with her parents too, although in her own separate quarters. And then it eventually leads to him becoming her dance partner, since she takes place in dance competitions in Philly. So he begins to practice with her in exchange for her giving a letter to his ex-wife. Since we've talked about these two characters, Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence are perfect together. Their chemistry is so on point. I had seen Bradley Cooper in other movies before, like Wedding Crashers, Hangover, and Failure to Launch with Matthew McConaughey, so I always knew him as the funny guy, but then when I see him in this movie, he does play a variation of himself, but there's a sense of wounded vulnerability to him, and he's desperately trying to cling on to his past as much as he can. This is probably the best performance I have ever seen from him. This was the first time that I saw him in a movie that made me go, wow, the guy can actually really act. I promise I'm not going to try to gush too much about her, but Jennifer Lawrence, her performance in here is just, it's amazing. I'm not just saying that because I'm in love with her, even though I am. Just like Bradley Cooper's character, she's got a wounded vulnerability to her, and there's one scene where she shows that, where she tells her how her husband died and how certain things led up to her husband's death. You feel the emotion that she feels and the sense of regret that she feels as well. And then there's this scene in the diner.
I'm just the crazy slut with a dead husband. Forget it!
Well, what can you do? And another great scene with her is when she's laying out all the facts to Robert De Niro, and that every time that she and Pat have spent together, Philly sports teams like the Eagles or the Phillies had a great game and won. And that as long as he's with her, the Eagles will always come away with a win. Speaking of that, Robert De Niro plays his father, Pat Sr., and he is a bit of a nutcase himself. A very passionate Philly sports fan, very OCD. He doesn't like it when something's out of order. He's like, no, it's gotta be this way. What's the number on that? What's the number on that envelope? And there's no more praise than I can give Robert De Niro. The guy's a great actor. But for a period of time, up until 2012 when this film came out, Robert De Niro was doing a lot of films that were either or not so good or just like, this is one of his best performances and the best he had been in a long time. And it's really easy for De Niro to be his usual self, like, you talking to me? You talking to me? Are you being a wise guy with me? You're right, you made a bad mistake. As you come back here, we're gonna bust your heads in. You don't screw around in this place. But his character also plays a huge part in Pat's recovery, where after Pat spends so much time with Tiffany and he's feeling terrible that his son's not spending time with him, and he finally opens up to him saying that, you know what, I didn't really spend a lot of time with you growing up. I spent too much time with your brother.
That's what all this Eagles stuff is about. It's about us. I wish you'd watch these games with me. So we could talk and we could get into things.
And I don't want to get too personal in this video, but I gotta say, that aspect of the movie hits home with me every time I watch it. My dad is a diehard Eagles fan, and my dad and I don't have a whole lot of stuff in common except for Eagles stuff. Much like Robert De Niro's character, the Eagles are the only way he knows how to bond with his son. And my dad and I have a similar dynamic. And again, not to get too personal, but we've been through some tough times over the years. And let's get the obvious out of the way. Yes, I'm wearing an Eagles jersey. Carson Wentz in white. Oh, I love this. You! And Bradley Cooper wears a white Eagles jersey too, but it's number 10, Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson is the man.
Well, that settles that.
This movie takes place in the 2008 season for the NFL and for the Eagles. This, I think, is the best depiction of Philly sports fans, period. The movie Invincible, that's a fine portrayal of it, but that was a lot more family friendly. This one is a lot more realistic. You see it in certain conversations where Pat Sr. is talking with his friend Randy, who's a Cowboys fan.
Traitor!
Talking about guys like Deshaun Jackson, who was in his rookie year in the 2008 season, spiking the ball before he crosses the goal line. And then Randy saying stuff like,
your team does that all the time. They get close, and then they blow it. They got an inferiority complex.
well, that wasn't the case in 2017, was it, Randy? And it showed you just how passionate Eagles fans are. Philly sports fans in general are very passionate, but Eagles fans, oh, they take it to a whole nother level, trust me on that. The passion is consistent, win, lose, or draw. And then it comes to a head when the Eagles lose that game that Bradley Cooper attends, and his father, who has a bit of a gambling problem, also bets everything, his fortune, savings, with his pal Randy, who's rooting for the Giants. The Eagles lose it, and therefore he loses all the money.
Don't do that! Don't ruin your little fucking shit! Don't do that! You're not doing you a fucking thing! Come on! You loser!
But then Tiffany shows up and offers him to have him give the money back when the Eagles play the Cowboys. But not just with the game, also with the dance competition that Pat and Tiffany are going to be in. If they manage to average 5 points in the contest and the Eagles beat the Cowboys, they get the money back. But if one loses and the other wins, it's no good. And Pat Sr., being the gambler that he is, decides to take the bet. Bradley Cooper decides to back out of this deal, but then after receiving a letter from Nikki through Tiffany, and he realizes that Tiffany actually wrote the letter and that Nikki doesn't want anything to do with him. He decides to go through with the dance, but his wife shows up anyway. So the contest happens, they average 5 points, and the Eagles beat the Dallas Cowboys and end up going to the playoffs. Just a little sidebar here. Yeah, I know, I'm an Eagles fan, just bear with me, okay? Like I said, this was during the 2008 season. This season was a really tough year for us. We won 9 games, lost 6, and we had 1 draw on the way. In that game where we played against the Cowboys, whoever won that game would end up going to the playoffs. And we're kind of in a similar situation right now. At the time of this recording, we're 5-4. We've won 5 games and lost 4. So we got about 7 games left to go in this season. Right now, our chances are looking a little grim. But the thing is, once you get to a championship, there's really nowhere else to go but down. That happens to a lot of teams. You get your championship or you make a championship appearance, and there's really nowhere else to go but down because you have to rebuild yourself back up again. Anyway, back to the movie. They win the contest. Pat goes to have a little talk with Nikki. We don't hear most of the conversation that goes down, but I think it's pretty clear that he tells her, hey, I've already found someone else and I'm happy. He goes after Tiffany and the two become a couple. Now, I've heard some people complain about this ending, saying that it was too cliche, it was too predictable, that they should never have gotten together. Yeah, sure, like that doesn't happen in real life. One way or another, things do improve. Sometimes people don't become an item, but sometimes people do. That happens in real life. It's not unheard of. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention with Pat's friend Ronnie. When he's showing him the iPod and the various songs that he has on there, like, I just met a girl named Maria, it makes me feel peaceful, and then when I'm angry, Metallica. Megadeth. I relate to that aspect too. I have certain songs on my phone that make me feel calm and peaceful, and if I'm feeling really agitated and frustrated, I like to listen to a little bit of Metallica also and go, Rah! Again, this movie does not shy away from realism, and that's just another example. All in all, Silver Linings Playbook, I don't really know any other way to describe it. It's genuinely heartfelt, sincere, emotional, but all around a great movie, and I will continue to watch it for years to come. So those are my thoughts on Silver Linings Playbook. What are your guys' thoughts on the movie? Do you love it, like it, think it's alright, or do you hate it? Whatever the case is, comment below and tell me your thoughts, and I will see you all very soon. Oh, and by the way,
E-A-T-L-E-S, Eagles!
see you later, guys.